start recording. Okay. Obviously, we have those of you familiar with Zoom. We've got there's a messaging function. If you have any questions, or chat function, feel free to put stuff in there. And we'll have Q&A at the end of this, just to make sure. At the end of all this, we just want to make sure that everyone's prepared going into the season, hopefully on the same page about what kind of experience we want to do our best to deliver for our kids, and just try to be on the same page so that there's ideally as little confusion as possible at the field week one, and of course throughout the season. So let me just dive into the slideshow real quick. And just please let me know, don't be shy. If mute yourself, obviously, or remain muted, but don't be shy if there's some technical issue that I'm not hearing you, you're not hearing me, just so that we make sure that this is productive for everyone. All right, so you should be able to see a screen right now, and let's go. So I've got a fantasy football team. I know I'm already losing my audience here, but this is my fantasy team. It's called the Rocrian Smith, and if you don't know football, meaning American football, then you're totally lost right now. But my point in providing this is your team is not a fantasy team. And I bring this up because unfortunately, we've got a really high volume right now of parents making team requests after we've already built teams. And this is something that is important, especially for our head coaches, to be aware of how we build teams, why we build teams, and helping you understand why it's so difficult for us to get back to parents. And unfortunately, you've got enough on your hands as a coach. You shouldn't have to deal with these things. And it's a challenge for us this time of year when we're trying to stay focused on getting fields done, getting goals moved, things that really relate directly to week one and the entirety of the season. And so I just want to walk briefly through how we build teams, very briefly, but balanced teams is the priority. Balanced teams is one of our 6 philosophies. Our head coaches contribute to balanced teams by providing us with player ratings at the end of the spring season. That's the end of our soccer year. And so while there are other considerations that we use in building our teams, balanced teams is the top priority. And that's, of course, because we want games to be fun and competitive every Saturday, ideally. So we also consider trying to get players who register on time to have at least one, ideally a couple, same school teammates. That is a consideration that we use. And of course, many of you coaches and referees are on the same team with another volunteer because you requested to coach or referee together. And that's something that we want to honor. And so long as you put it into the registration in the right place so that our division coordinator could see that, you are together on the team with the parents and families that you requested. There are other considerations. For example, if we have only 5 referees in one division, which unfortunately that's the case in many cases, we're not going to put all of those referees obviously on the same team. We want to spread those out. And the same goes with assistant coaches. We want to spread the assistant coaches out throughout the division. We do have a buddy policy in that if a single buddy is requested in registration, we'll assign those 2 players together in a team. And in divisions like U12, U14, where we have 2 different grades together within the division, we do our best to balance those teams so that there's an equal, well, not equal, but a, generally speaking, not an overweight proportion of 5th graders versus 6th graders. These are all things, considerations that our volunteer division coordinators are asked to consider and factor into building teams. And I'm telling you all this because I don't want to bore you with how the sausage is made, but it's important that we all understand there is process, it is not a fickle, random thing. And so whether you have questions as a coach or referee, as a parent, or you are receiving questions from parents about, well, why am I not on a team with 4 other Riverside kids? There's a process and an order and a structure. And we're confident in what's going to make this a good experience for our kids. And the ingredients to that are listed at the bottom of the screen, the 6 philosophies. Okay, so I'm sorry to get into that, into too much detail and take our time talking about that. But these things, frankly, it seems like it's only getting worse as far as expectations that the parents can build the teams versus our league and our volunteer division coordinators building teams. All right, moving on. So 6 philosophies that basically informs all of our most important decisions as a league, as a regional board. We're always looking for more contribution, more participation from more parents at our board level. We meet the second Monday of every month, and we'd love to have you at a future board meeting. This is what it's all about, the kids. We all play a role in contributing to the AYSO experience. And of course, we all need to be respectful, good sportsmanship being one of our 6 philosophies, respectful to each other, the opposing team, the opposing coach, referee, etc. Because it's all about the kids. So briefly, let's talk about some very new things that only impact U5 and U6, but we're going to go through this briefly. If you're a U5 boys or a U6 girls team, all of your matches are at Ellert Park. All of your activities are at Ellert Park. We have a new Ellert Park shed that houses these bow net collapsible goals, and we have 6 fields at Ellert Park this season. The way this is going to work is the first games of the day that start at 8:15. Those teams are responsible for going to the Ellert Park shed, grabbing 2 goals from the shed and setting those up, not only for your activities that morning at 8:15, but also for the remaining teams that are going to be there throughout that day. The final games or start times for Ellert Park are at 11:30. And so any teams that are arriving at the park for 11:30 start time, you guys at the end of your match are going to be responsible for taking down these goals, putting them back in the bags that they come with, and putting those back into the shed. I'll send an email out to all parents in these 2 divisions just to make clear what we're doing. And there will be a field map that'll be available tomorrow showing where each of those 6 fields are. For U5 girls, all games will be, or activities will be at Forest Hill South, 2 different fields. A field map will go out tomorrow, most likely, to all those parents. And then finally, U6 boys, all of your activities are at Gordon Park, fields 1 through 5. Same thing, we'll have a field map available and get that to parents as soon as that field is, those fields are actually getting done tomorrow as far as surveyed and laid out and built. For any field issues, and this will be a running theme for all coaches, but this includes goal issues, bow net issues, send an email to fields@ayso300.org. Okay, and again, if you have any questions along the way in the slide presentation, please just save those for at the end of with the Q&A. For those that don't know, uniforms are not custom sized for individual players. Nearly, I think all teams except for maybe 2 have all the uniforms they need in the box that they received for the number of players they have on their team. Many of you will have some extra uniforms. We may get you new players between now and the next week or even 2 weeks, or you may just have a couple extra uniforms for the spring. since our teams carry over into the spring. If you do have any questions about uniforms, please email Derek Jansen at uniforms@ayso300.org. In terms of coaching supplies, Derek will be at the shed tomorrow from 4:30 to 6. If a coach feels like we skimped out on giving them enough soccer balls, we may have enough youth-size pennies. We definitely have some adult-size pennies at the shed. We have goalkeeper shirts, which some of you may or may not have gotten. These are long-sleeve shirts for goalkeepers. We are out of ice packs right now, but we do have extra first aid, which has an ice pack in it. So if you didn't get any ice packs, you may want to come by tomorrow to get some of those first aid packs. We're not money bags. We are non-for-profit. And so we do want to be relatively conservative in the number of soccer balls we give you, because of course we want to encourage the kids to bring their own soccer ball to every practice. But again, if you feel like you didn't get enough, come by. We want to help you, support you in any way we can. For referees, I will be at the shed from 6 to 7 o'clock. Gear includes what's listed here: shirt, referee shirt, shorts, socks, whistle. We have a cheat sheet just with different rules and signals for referees, and then flags for older ages. And we're a little light on remaining flags, but we'll have all that at the shed tomorrow. If you're a coach and you can't get there by 6 and you need something, I'll be there up until 7 o'clock. So feel free to stop by before 7. If you're a referee and you can't get there 6 to 7 and you want to get there a little early while Derek's there, we'll figure it out. You know, we should be able to help you, get you what you need. Back to coaches. The online practice scheduler was offline for a few days while we cleaned some things up. It's now back online as of tonight. If you need to revise anything that you want to set as recurring for the rest of the season, please email fields@ayso300.org so we know that you've changed something for the entirety of the season. We're trying to keep the scheduler live and available throughout the season, so that if a coach has 1 week where they are, the fields are closed and they want to make up that practice on another day, the scheduler is there for you to allow you to do that. That's the intention, and we're trying to make it flexible for you. But it's only as good as the information that we have. So please, again, if you're going to set something as recurring, we want to try to avoid 2 things. One, conflict. Coaches, too many coaches or teams showing up at the same field. Most of our fields, you should expect to share a field with at least one other team. In some exceptions, there's only enough for 1 team space-wise. But we don't want 3 teams showing up, 4 teams showing up, etc. We don't want you showing up where there's baseball, all that stuff. So please do let us know if you're taking a practice slot off for the entirety of the season so that we can make that open for other coaches. And please let us know if you're adding something new as a recurring practice. The second thing we're trying to avoid, of course, is paying user fees for field space we're not using. Every one of our park districts is charging us hourly to use soccer fields. These are public parks, but we're being charged hourly for use of soccer fields. So we don't want to overpay for field space we're not using. Field closures will happen, hopefully not as much this fall as last spring. Closures in most cases are dictated to us by the park districts. In some cases, at some park district areas, we have some latitude in terms of whether we feel like we need to close the field or not. So this does happen, and we'll talk a little bit about when and where to find updates on field closures. User conflicts, they happen too. We try to avoid them. We're much more organized than we have been, say, a decade ago in terms of avoiding these types of conflicts. But I will tell you, just yesterday, after asking over and over again, one of the school districts about field time and avoiding any kind of conflict, we were just notified yesterday that one field, there's some other activity going on that unfortunately makes us have to move some of the pieces as far as the teams that scheduled to practice there. So user conflicts do happen. Please be respectful of each other, whether it's another AYSO coach or a baseball coach or whatever, and just email fields@ayso300.org, and we'll do the best that we can to help you resolve that in the future. Field or goal issues will come up. We've got a few goals that definitely still need to be moved. We moved a bunch of goals earlier today into position, but also from one field to another. The bottom line is for week 1, we obviously intend to get everything all organized by Saturday, but there's a lot of work involved, a lot of volunteers that have to help get this stuff done. We probably have 3 or 4 different fields where between now and Saturday, we're hoping and looking to replace the nets on some of these goals because they're in rough shape. So it's an ongoing process, but feel free if you want to shoot us an email at fields@ayso300.org. Let us know what you see. We can't have eyes everywhere, and so it's important that you let us know if you see something that's of concern. All right, let's talk about referees. If you're a parent referee, please be sure to self-schedule yourself. You do this through the team website. If you saw an email that I sent earlier this week, there's actually unfortunately, there's 2 different spots where you can click once you're logged in to do the self-scheduling. One of those is called the classic version, and that's actually a much quicker way to do it. The non-classic, if you will, link for self-scheduling takes a whole minute to load. But in either case, either one will work. And the point of doing this is so that we know, and more importantly, another referee, a youth referee, knows that your game, your match, has a referee, therefore it's not an open game. Youth referees will be looking for, quote, open games, meaning a game with no scheduled referee, so that they can work that match. And so we would hate to have a match where you're planning to work, but you didn't self-schedule, and now a youth referee shows up, and now you have 2 referees for a U6 match where you really don't need 2 referees. So let's try to avoid that from happening so that we're considerate of everyone's time. And these youth referees, we want to make sure that we're encouraging them, not discouraging them from continuing to referee. How do we do that? We also, in addition to self-scheduling, we don't yell at them. We don't give them a hard time. We let them do what they do, let them learn. Sometimes we are learning from mistakes, and we're not perfect, and neither are they. So please make sure the kids feel supported. These are kids 12 and older. If you have kids that want a youth referee, I apologize. We've not gotten much out there as far as messaging, and that will come probably tomorrow. It better come tomorrow or else it's too late. But, I'm just telling you, we are short-staffed, if you hadn't noticed. That maybe goes without saying as an all-volunteer organization, but we have a lot of work that we have too few volunteers getting it done. So just putting that out there, and with our youth refs, let's support them and not scare them off from doing this job. If you do have questions about refereeing, Brad Rademacher is monitoring ref@ayso300.org email, and then youthref@ayso300.org if you have specific questions about youth refereeing. And one last thing about refereeing, If you haven't yet done the online training and you're new to refereeing, please look at that email that was sent earlier this week. If you didn't see an email, let me know, I'll forward it to you. But it basically had detailed instructions on how to access the online training for referees. All right, for both coaches and referees, we've got division guidelines for every single division. These are not just rules, but also if you scroll down to the bottom of this page, ayso300.org/guidelines, there's some best practices for things such as avoiding blowouts. There's explanation and a little more guidance in terms of things like the build out line. Build out line is something that you'll see from U7 through U10. And so please, if you haven't seen the page before, please take the time to go to ayso300.org/guidelines. This is especially important because the online training that we point you to and ask you to complete, that's coming from AYSO National. And as a region our size and scale, there are certain things that we do our way to the beat of our own drum. We never compromise on the 6 philosophies at the bottom of the screen, but there are ways that we think work better for us. And so that's the importance of reviewing the guidelines. That's the importance of when there are opportunities for in-person training to try to fit that into your schedule. And then one of the common points of confusion among our guidelines is, for example, U5 through U8. When the ball is out of bounds, we are doing pass-ins. We're not doing throw-ins. If you disagree with that, feel free to come to a board meeting and we can talk about it. But for this season, this year, we're doing pass-ins when the ball goes out of bounds. There's specific language in the division guidelines on this page that talks about what needs to be the distance between the player passing the ball in and the opposing player, the defender. There has to be a distance between that, away from the ball for the defender. So all those details are in the division guidelines. Please take a look at that. We have 1, maybe 2 divisions at U5 or U6. I believe I think U5 girls, for example, where our rosters are a little light. We've had some withdrawals. We thought we'd get more players. You just never know with projecting new registrations. Bottom line is, if you have a roster that's a smaller roster, let's say 6 kids, and you don't get all 6 to show up, or they're tired or whatever, there's no shame in playing 3v3. We do 4v4 at U5, U6 as far as players on the field, but 3v3 is totally fine. So whatever the reason, if it's, kids are at a camp out or what have you, 3v3 is totally okay. The running theme, and anyone that goes to the coach trainings that I do, let the kids play. There's never a reason, I'm telling you, never a reason to cancel or forfeit other than safety hazards, severe weather, etc. There's no shame in sharing players. Sharing players is okay. We're trying to have a good experience. We're not trying to add to the standings, okay? So if, for example, you've got a first half where it's 5-0, start thinking about and talking to each other, ref, coach, about, hey, why don't we give you these 2 players? Let's make it a more interesting, exciting, fun, competitive second half. To just continue with one team dominating the entirety of the game, that's not what we're trying to accomplish with balanced teams. So the kids don't always like to play on another team. I get that, but I've been a coach before with all these teams. I know the eye roll that I receive, but guess what? Let's make it a better experience for both teams in that second half. At U9, U10, 7v7 is preferred, but depending on who shows up, how many you have of your team that are there, if both coaches agree to play 8v8 with less kids on the sidelines, then that's perfectly fine. Talking about weather and cancellations, any closures or cancellations we're updating at our public website, which is ayso300.org. As I mentioned before, we get a lot of directive from the park districts. We're also going out to fields ourselves as volunteers. During the week, we will try our best to update the website as early as possible during the day. But knowing that we're not always getting updates from the park districts early, we're waiting on them sometimes, we can at least commit to updating the website by 3:30 in the afternoon during the week. On Saturdays, we'll have updates by 7:30 if there are any cancellations or closures. If you don't see cancellation closures by that time, then any future cancellations during the day, later that day, need to be made by coaches and referees at the field. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone sitting by a laptop all day updating a website because we're coach and referee volunteers ourselves. Zero tolerance when it comes to lightning and thunder. So play should be suspended immediately on the first sign of thunder or lightning. Okay. Again, I'll be here all night if you like for any questions and answers. What I walked through is just intended to be sort of, hit some top bullet points of questions that often come up. But I do want to encourage you all to encourage your team, consider for yourself and your family. This Saturday, we'll have a Chicago Fire match that includes a tailgate as well as a pregame playing experience for the kids. It starts with 3:30. Folks will need to arrive by 3:15, but 3:30 is the pregame on-field experience for our kids inside SeatGeek Stadium. At 4:30, we'll start our tailgate. This is catered, food and beverage, all the way through 6:30, probably a little bit after. But 6:30 is when we'll start to try to break down and clean things up, and then kick off at 7 o'clock. Discounted tickets, frankly, they're never as discounted as we want them to be. We always feel like with our size and scale, we should be getting a better deal, but both Fire and Red Stars tend to be stingy about their group ticket sales. Parking's not included. I just found out today it's going to be $25. Yeah, so if you have any questions about any of this for this Saturday's event, go to ayso300.org/special events or email events@ayso300.org. Also, in support of the Kick Childhood Cancer theme, and September being Pediatric or Childhood Cancer Month, we are doing Play Soccer t-shirt sales at ayso300.org/merch, where $5 for every sale of t-shirt goes to Winning with Wyatt, which is a pediatric cancer charity. All right, so before I jump to the Q&A, I just want to say that at the end of the day, despite all the rules and division guidelines and complaining about whatever that we hear, either from me or from parents or whatever, or you, we should be having fun with this. I hope you guys have a great season. It's important that we all have fun, not just the kids. And I want you to know that we really appreciate you stepping up and volunteering to coach or referee. Many on this call did not check the box to coach or referee when you first registered your kids. Many of you answered the call when we were short, I think, 60 coaches, head coaches, about 3 weeks ago. And so we really appreciate you stepping up. And before I get to the Q&A, one last time, I'm going to reach out to Brian Curran. Brian, let me know if you have anything you want to say. And I'll start looking at the chat area.
No, not really, Drew. I think you've covered everything. I think if people have questions, we can entertain that. But again, just to piggyback on what you were saying, I do encourage anybody who's maybe on the fence about going to the Fire game tomorrow, or excuse me, Saturday. It would be great to get a good crowd. And if any of you guys were at coach training preseason or last season, if you guys have AYSO t-shirts, I think it'd be a nice, it'd be nice if we were representing and all wearing our AYSO gear, whatever way that would look at the game. So yeah, happy to answer any questions as well, and I'll stay on here for a while.
Yeah, so, and before I'll open up to the group, but first I'm just going to read from the chat area. I had a question about ref training link. So I'm going to, so John, who asked that question, email me if you get a chance at rc@ayso300.org. And I will make sure that you got the email that was sent earlier this week, because there's information about eTrainU, which is the link within our team website to access the online training. But I'm putting in the chat, the team website is ayso300team.org. As soon as you log into that, you will then be able to access the eTrainU. It's a link within the team website. The only exception to that is anyone that has not yet completed the background check, you then won't have access to eTrainU. And so there again, I'll have to email me and I'll have to help you with that as well. One thing to point out is, and I said this to our coaches a few weeks ago at one of the trainings we did in person, organized soccer, the notion of organized soccer, that phrase means something completely different than what it used to. That's the bottom line. And so what it means today is, and this is organized youth sport of any kind, is we have, for better or for worse, more websites to point you to, background checks of more thorough checking, if you will. We have, administrating field use and user fees with the park districts. We have just a whole lot more to organize with and get organized about. And so, it is what it is. So I do want to help you in any way that I can get through that. Those of you that had issues with background check, for example, we're all well versed in little hiccups and things that that have to get repaired or troubleshooting or et cetera. So again, I appreciate your patience in getting through that, but any way that I can help, we can. Let's see, just real quick, looking at the chat area. If the coach and assistant coach have to miss a game or practice, can any parent step up and coach for the day? The answer is yes, because we don't want to just cancel. Ideally, we've got a couple assistant coaches on every team, but at the end of the day, we want to, again, let the kids play. That's the mantra that needs to go on and on, which means that we still get a game off, get a practice off, et cetera. In some cases, if it's a match day, it's not ideal at all, but as a coach, I've coached both teams, my team and the other team where the coach wasn't there. So there's always a way to let the kids play. And if you have any other questions about that, the folks that asked that, feel free to email me. People should wear their AYSO t-shirts at the Fire game. Maybe we sell t-shirts on site. Yes, that's actually happening. That's a great suggestion, and it's already planned. So thank you. But yeah, please wear your, I saw today, drove past Cosset School, saw a parent wearing one of our Play Soccer t-shirts. I mean, it's great to, obviously they're very comfortable quality shirts, but I think it's great to see people wearing them and being proud of, hopefully proud of our league. Is there a policy on bringing snacks? It was paused during COVID for a bit. The policy for snacks is basically back to what it always was, which is there is no policy. If you would like to do snacks as a team, as a coach, feel free. If you don't want to do them, feel free. You may have parents asking if they could do it, so keep that in mind. I think generally speaking, for most people, snacks are part of the experience, especially for the younger ages. But you as head coach, you can ultimately decide what that means for you. The only major thing that I would recommend is not so much about COVID, but about food allergies. Make sure that you're aware or asking about food allergies before you introduce snacks. And we do have one of the emails that we've held back on, but you'll get there is access that we all have, excuse me, to medical waivers and medical conditions. And so there'll be instructions sent to all head coaches about how to access those. But that's the key thing about snacks is just being aware of any food allergies on your team. Does referee training include the interpretation that goalkeeper has one hand on the ball against the ground? That is goalkeeper's ball. Yes, I agree with you that as soon as a player is touching the ball with their hand, the attacking player should lay off, bottom line. And, John, if I think I'm saying what you're saying, but feel free to chime in if I'm not quite saying what you're saying. But the bottom line is that from a safety perspective, if the goalkeeper, and to answer your question partly, I don't know where it says this on our website, but I think in our guidelines section, there's something about this. And if not, we should put it in there. But the bottom line is that if, and I don't know if the training touches on this or not, but if the goalkeeper has a hand on the ball, that there should be basically a safe zone at that point. The attacking players should lay off. John?
I guess the question I have is, do the referees, they should be reminding younger players back off. The younger players are not listening to anything, and they need to, somebody immediately has to stop them or somebody's going to get hurt. That's all.
I agree. And the bottom line, the spirit of it all is that it's a safety issue. And I do think coaches can play a role in this too, a huge role in, we're all going back to that triangle. We all can contribute to correcting that. And, there may be that initial aggression and, and it may, but we're not professional soccer here. And so referees and coaches, I think both have a role in reinforcing that as a safety issue. I'll talk to Brad Rademacher, who unfortunately he's our ref coordinator, but he's been out of pocket. We all are volunteers. We all have things happening, that we're dealing with. So I'll talk to him about whether we need to update the website or send a specific message about that. And John, feel free to email me if you have any suggestions about what that language should say as far as putting it on the website.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's see. Can I provide you with my birth date so it can be changed online? Let's not do it here in the chat room, but and if you've already sent it to us, then great. If not, just email me, rc@ayso300.org. We can update that. And I apologize, John's question about goal safety or goalkeeper safety, for example, a lot of these emails have been flying around. We get such a high volume of emails. Not just me, but I get a ton. We're doing our best to respond, but this is just a insane time of year. And we're just flooded with emails. Okay. So Marty, what's your question about practice? Marty? Okay.
Sorry, I'm not used to Zoom. My bad. Hey,
That's right.
First of all, thank you to Drew, Brian, and all the other volunteers for all you guys have done. That goes without saying. I think we all appreciate the efforts you guys put in.
Thanks.
Regarding the specific comment, I guess, so I had scheduled it for, this is very specific. I said scheduled practice at the Forest Road School, and I wasn't quite sure which one was the practice field. We made it work. There was no conflicts or anything like that. Are all the practice fields detailed to that extent to, where it's supposed to be, or you're just supposed to go where the goals are at?
Well, what I would say is first, as a coach, my personal approach, I just need a patch of grass.
Right.
That's just me. I don't need goals to conduct a fun, organized practice. Obviously, we'd all love to have goals to shoot on and things like that. But aside from that, this is week one. So we have a number of fields out there currently where goals are not yet in place. They will be by Saturday, but they're not. So I think the better sort of testing ground for this kind of thing would be next week. But also to answer your question, every field's different. You know, we have a field like Forest Road where you got 2 different baseball diamonds, and, you know, other obstructions at other fields. So I think, you know, it's not as if we have a field map or diagram for every single field.
Okay.
Some fields are bigger, therefore a little more complicated in terms of, you know, carving out your space. Or I guess you could argue the opposite for the smaller fields, even more complicated to figure out what space you're going to use. But in most cases, as I said earlier, we don't have so many fields, so we do ask teams to share fields, 2 teams, and you know, I think you're gonna have to decide for yourself ultimately, where do I need the space to do what I, you know, my plan for what I came to do as far as your practice session, you know, so I don't know if I answered your question, but
No,
those are-
you did, and you unintentionally answered my second question, because I was talking to a coach that had a session after mine, and he mentioned that you could actually have 2 teams on one field. We didn't have that because there was no other team, but I was just going to verify that as well, which we would make it work. It's not, I mean, obviously we're here to have fun and be genial to each other, but I was curious.
There are certain fields, Enforcement Road may be one of them, I forget, where we only allow 1 team to be there at a time. And
Okay.
if we did that at Forest, it's because you have the 2 different baseball diamonds, and we just make the judgment call that 2 fields there will be typed, right?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Drew.
All right, sure, thank you. All right, now, what if you can't make referee uniform pickup tomorrow? You know, I think email me. You know, I got an email from someone saying I'm going to be out of town those 2 days, and so is there another pickup? Well, I kind of need to know when you're going to be back in town to figure that out. So just let me know what you can do, and obviously, ideally, we'd like to help you before Saturday if you intend to referee on Saturday. So just shoot me an email, rc@ayso300.org, and we want to get you what you need. But let me just also add, we're volunteers. I got a question at one of the coach trainings. Do I get paid? I don't get paid. None of us get paid. That's not how this works. So, you know, I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but we need to all be considerate of each other and of each other's time. There are limitations on what you can do in your schedule. Just know there's limitations on us as well and what we can get done. Let's see, division guidelines. Should G10 be 7v7? Yeah, again, the reason there's this sort of latitude at U9 and U10 divisions, 7v7 versus 8v8, it's because season to season, sometimes we have larger rosters in certain seasons and smaller rosters and others in those 2 divisions. So it really goes back to how many kids show up at the game and how many kids are on your sidelines during the game. And if you'd like to get 1 more kid on each team into the game, feel free to play 8v8. There are US soccer guidelines that, you know, promote 7v7 at this age. But, you know, it's when we have the size and scale that we do, the number of players sometimes on these rosters, we want to, again, let the kids play. So 8v8, in our opinion, is not sacrilege. Feel free to play 8v8 on these size fields for U9 and U10. But please communicate with the opposing coach, with the referee, to make sure that we're all on the same page. The first thing that should be happening when you get to the field, it's U7 and older, is you should be meeting each other. Introduce yourself to the other volunteers. You may be coaching against this other coach for the next decade with your other kids. So let's get to know each other. Let's meet a new friend. And that's going to make things so much easier when there's any type of conflict during the game or after the game. All right. The rule reference is mentioned in the, oh, okay. So there's a rule reference as far as goalkeepers on our website, or no, in the training, sorry. Okay. Let's see, my email address is rc@aoiso300.org. Okay, so there's a suggestion to play 77. Again, 77s are preferred setup for U9, U10. Let's see, did we address the kick in versus throw in? Extra does throw in at that age. So again, U5 through U8, when the ball goes out of bounds on the sidelines, it is a pass in, not a throw in. Throw-ins at U9 and above. And if that changes in the future, meaning next year, we'll let you know. But U5 through U8 are pass-ins or kick-ins, if you will. That information is on division guidelines page at aoiso300.org/guidelines. Let's see. Okay.
Hey, Drew,
Yes.
this is Brad. Could I
Hey,
chime in
Brad.
for-
Brad, welcome.
Yeah, I've been auditing for a while. I just wanted to mention, John, yeah, your point well taken on the when the goalkeeper has the hand on the ball. We try to mention that to the kids. There's a lot of things to mention to the kids at the start of the game, and I want to echo what Drew was saying, that we really, I understand you don't have a lot of the kids practicing with you. So when you get to the game, maybe you're downloading a bunch of things to kids that don't normally come to practice. That would be a great thing to tell them. I will say one of the challenges that refs have at the age where there starts to be goalkeepers is that we usually have one ref. There's not usually an AR. It's pretty challenging to be all over the field. And at times we don't get down there to deal with things immediately. So it is challenging. It's great if you could reinforce rules like that. I wanted to mention, somebody was asking about ref gear. I would be available for persons to pick up gear. If you just tell me your size, once you send me an email at ref at aoiso300.org, and I'll have that available for pickup at my house on Friday as a sort of a stopgap getting gear out to everybody.
Thanks, Brad. And while you're there, also, I just want to point out, Brad and I were talking earlier today. The training, the preparation for the season, that doesn't end after game one this Saturday. To the extent that anyone needs or would be interested in more referee training in person, because we haven't done any in person so far this season. If anyone would be interested in that, if anyone feels like they need that, same thing with coach training. We're not at all, we're totally prepared to schedule more if it's needed. We want to kind of hear from you to make sure that folks will come out and make sure that we're basically serving people's needs. So please keep that in mind. And then there's a question about the build outline. Again, at the division guidelines page, if you scroll down beyond the age sections, there is a bunch of other categories, including build outline. But basically, U7 through U10, we do have a build outline in each of those divisions. And the whole intent of the build outline is when the goalkeeper has possession of the ball, or when there's a goal kick, the defending team is not allowed to have immediate pressure on the ball. The defending team has to get behind the build out line. And as soon as the attacking team, the team with the ball, the team doing the goal kick, or the team with the goalkeeper with the ball, in possession of the ball, as soon as they put that ball back into play, now the defending team can cross the build out line and apply pressure on the ball. So that's in the form of the goalkeeper releasing the ball out of their possession. It's regardless of whether it exits the penalty box or the goal box, is as soon as it's out of their possession, the defending team can apply pressure and cross by crossing the build-out line. And with a goal kick, it's as soon as the ball is moving, so it's been kicked as a goal kick. Now the defending team that is supposed to be behind the build-out line can now cross the build-out line to apply pressure on the ball. As a referee, and John, thanks for the question because it just helps me reinforce this. As a referee, please observe whether the kids are getting behind the build-out line or not. Usually, even mid-season last year, I remember refereeing a game or two, and the kids are obviously super anxious, which is great, right, to get to that ball, but it's there for a reason, the build-out line. And so let's make sure that they are, both coaches and refs, but especially referees, are keeping this rule fair by keeping them behind the build-out line anytime the other team has possession of the ball, goalkeeper, or it's a goal kick. Let's see, for U5, U6, should we be using halfway line as a build-out line for goal kicks? That's an awesome question. Thank you. I would love to make that a rule, and we haven't. But the question is in the same spirit of the build-out line. If I'm coaching at U5, U6, and my team just kicked the ball out of bounds past the goal line, now it's a goal kick. And so I'm encouraging, without running on the field, I am encouraging all of my players to go to the circle, the center circle. So that way we're giving the team with the ball, the attacking team that's doing the goal kick, we're giving them at least a little bit of time to put the ball into play and to try to build the ball up the field at such an early age when we're just trying to encourage kids to get touches on the ball. And it's hard to do that when you're applying that immediate pressure on a goal kick or on the ball. So I'd encourage all of our coaches here to try to get your players to get into that center circle anytime there's a goal kick. Okay, and to keep in mind again, U5, U6, there are no goalies. We have goalkeepers starting at U7. And then one other question, should coaches be on opposite sides of the field or on the same line? If on the same line, should they stay on their own halves? Thank you for the question. That's a good question. We don't have during COVID or when COVID first hit, I think we had a policy about that. We don't have a defined policy about where the teams have to be necessarily. I've seen both. You'll see both throughout your career as an AYSO coach or referee. There's no place in our website or I think in the training that addresses this. So it's really up to you. So you can be on the opposite side, you can be on the safe side. Just, I think there's generally a courtesy that if you're on the same side, you're kind of staying on your end of the half, if you understand. So you're not coaching past the center line, so you're kind of on the other coach's side, if that makes any sense. But we don't have a defined policy about that. And if anyone has any follow-up questions about that or any of these great questions, feel free. Anyone on the call that wants to ask, sorry.
I was going to jump in, Drew. I just think,
Yes.
I mean, especially with the younger kids, I think if the space allows, I think alternate sides of the field can make things less confusing. Like Drew said, for build-out lines, instructions and stuff, you're going to be trying to convey messages onto the field. And I think if the kids know that you're going to be on one side and that's their side, I think that might be a bad idea to start with. Space might not always allow it, or the layout of the field might not always allow it, but I think it's not a bad preference to kind of take alternate sides of the field. Can keep things a little more organized for the kids. That'd be my 2 cents.
As I think about it, I mean, it's really just a best practices thing, what you think is the best practice. But as I think about it, one of our philosophies, obviously everyone plays. It's a mandate that everyone plays at least 50% of every match. And to me, sometimes the biggest danger to everyone plays, especially at U9 and above, where we don't have quarter breaks, it's more kind of you have either have set time when you want to sub, or if you do it like me, it's more instinctive. But I know my only concern about everyone plays is if I have kids hiding from me. They're not near me on the sideline, they're over by mom or dad, sort of, hidden from me. So I think one advantage of having both coaches on the opposite side of where the parents are, the spectators, is that you just know they're over by you. I would argue another reason is in the vein of let the kids play, less distraction potentially for you if you're on the sideline opposite of the parents. It's again, there's no official policy. I think club teams, they do have official policy, I believe, where it's like I described, the coaches and the teams are all on the opposite side of the spectators. But we don't have an official policy about that. Let's see. And as a referee, this is a referee comment. Nice to have coaches on one side and to talk before game about them helping to make calls for out of bound balls. And I just lost the comment. Probably you're saying offside as well. Another agreement, coaches on one side, parents on the other. Yeah. So, I think the other thing I would just mention is that, John's mentioned, or John Mayer, I believe, mentioned or reminded me of this, that, even if you're the only referee of the field, doesn't mean that we can't recruit some parents off the sideline to be ARs, assistant refs. And so two reasons why we'd encourage that. One is simply practical. It'll help you so long as if it's U9 and above, so long as they're not trying to pretend they know the offside rule. That's obviously a danger if people are interpretive on the offside rule because they don't know it. But strictly from a getting the out of bounds calls right, it's great to have some volunteers to help out making those calls. The second reason, selfishly, why we like doing that, recruiting some parents to do that, is who knows, maybe they'll actually decide to volunteer to ref next year. This is not intended as just a all night complaint fest, but we just are so short on referees. And so anything we can do that can sort of lightly encourage parents to get more involved in officiating, that's a greater good as far as we're concerned. All right, one other comment here. Right. Yeah, I can't tell you how many games are suspended for play that I've refereed because of shoelaces. So coaches, you got a lot on your plate, I know, but let's add one more, which is before they hit the field, let's all get our shoes tied, okay? And obviously the parents play the biggest role in that. Yeah. All right. By the way, just I want to make one other point, at least, that Brian and I talked a lot about this Zoom call and whether we do it in person. We would love, in talking to Brad earlier today as well, we would all love to do more sort of social events, coaches and refs. And I think there's always room to do that. There's always, we're not money bags. We're not going to, pay for all your drinks, but, maybe that first round. So we would love to do more of that stuff. And if you see some announcements about that, I'd encourage you guys to, where you can fit it into your schedule, to please join us. Because, this is a fraternity, a sorority, whatever, of volunteers. And there's a lot of best practices and, situational things that we've all dealt with or that we're going to deal with. And there's a lot of experience and knowledge among our ranks as well. So to the extent that we can mentor others, not just the youth referees, but each other in terms of younger parents, we want to create that those opportunities, be opportunistic in creating that for all of us. All right. Any other questions or anything that I might have missed on the chat section that anyone has?
Drew, I'd like to chime in with one thing real quick.
Yes.
Well, we still have 36 participants. We were up to like 50 here. If there are any coaches on the call that where you don't have a ref, or the ref's never there or something like that, if you can, please talk to parents about volunteering. I'd be happy to do some in-person training, as we get maybe 1/4 of the way through the season. But please just always remember to tell those parents if they want to volunteer, it's ref@ayso300.org. Shoot me an email, or you can shoot one to Drew. If those parents would be willing to help, it's great. We are so far short on the refs that we need. So keep that in mind as the season goes on.
Yeah, and if anyone has ideas too for what the league can do to recruit more refs, any thoughts that you guys have on that, we're always open to new ideas like that. Sometimes we think we've thought of it all, but we're never short on new ideas. All right. Any other questions or comments before we head on out? Coaches or refs? Oh. Okay, my screen froze. Can you guys hear me still?
We can still hear you.
Okay, so my screen froze. That's obviously a sign that we need to cut out. But thank you all for your time. It's always appreciated. Thank you for doing your part to make this a great experience for our kids. Don't be shy. Feel free to reach out. Again, rc@ayso300.org. Brian is at coach@ayso300.org. Brad is at ref@ayso300.org. All right. Thank you all. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yep. Go Chicago Fire Saturday. Buy your tickets.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.